Hello and welcome. My name is Jasmine Keys, and you are listening to Why, How, Impact, the series that breaks down what it takes to be a leader and why on earth they do it. Today, we are featuring Angela Hession, who until recently served as the Chief Customer Trust Officer at Twitch. Angela has been at the forefront of trust and safety in the digital realm, having previously worked at Microsoft for almost 20 years, leaving her role as global head of gaming safety and trust to join Twitch in 2022. Angela, you were an expert in Xbox safety. That is one seriously cool job. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So, throughout this week's episode, we'll explore what you've learned from your experiences at Twitch and Microsoft. And we're also going to delve a little bit into your search for your next big role. So, similar to an episode we did with Vera Mira a few weeks ago, so it was episode 5, I didn't really realize when I was putting this questioning together for Why How Impact that it is the sort of things that you're looking at when you're looking for your next role. We're focusing on identifying our passions, how our experiences align with that, and then the leadership style that you will bring to the next role. So while you're kind of in this place of self-reflection and introspection, it's an opportunity to consider your true aspirations and how to position yourself in a way that resonates with those passions and find an organization that motivates you and values your unique leadership approach. So, as always, Angela, we'll start with the why. How did you end up in a C-suite role at a huge organization?
I have a strong desire in creating safe and inclusive and empowering communities so that people can connect, grow, and learn together. And I also believe in the transformation power of technology that needs to be grounded in trust and safety principles. And doing that through, innovation, strategic vision is really important to me. And when I think about my why and why leadership is so important to me, it's also about making sure we're doing things that are human centered when we think about trust and safety going forward. And my passion is also just because I do believe in making sure these environments are great for the most vulnerable that want to create and connect and grow together. And this passion is also just founded on my personal experiences. So, when I was a child, I had dyslexia, and at times I felt overwhelmed or vulnerable. And with leadership, my why is the ability to amplify impact. So, when you're a leader, you have that opportunity of creating new safety standards. You have that opportunity of increasing customer satisfaction more broadly. And I would also say it's important about driving change and innovation. I mean, I think as a leader, I had this opportunity, and I continue to have the opportunity to focus on cutting edge technology and making sure that your ideas and the technology that you believe in actually come to fruition. And then the foundation of empowering others. So, empowering others and mentorships and creating organizational structures where people can thrive and grow and see their potential. And that's so important in leadership principles, is that our people are our most important resource in creating those organizational designs where they feel supported. And then I think aligning on core values. My why is so important in a sense of my core values are about ensuring that people have an inclusive place to thrive and grow, and also just making sure that there's that integrity piece as you're thinking through new technology or safety standards. So my why is really, again, if I was to sum it up, it's just that creating safe and inclusive spaces where people can connect and grow and thrive together in any digital environment, especially for the most vulnerable, just given my background and experience even growing up.
There must have been so much change since you've been in the industry. When you were in Microsoft, when did you first get involved with the Xbox project?
Oh my gosh, I feel even saying this from the very beginning, actually.
Really?
So, yes, I was so fortunate to be in the very beginning of Xbox OG, is something that we call it, so the original Xbox. And I had the opportunity actually to launch the first Xbox. And with that came the online spaces, so Xbox Live, and being part of that core team that actually started launching Live Connection in Mexico, I think was our first international market. And just having that foundation, the importance of connecting with other human beings is so important. And then the foundation of that is making sure that you feel safe and you feel included.
Mm. And like that is absolutely incredible that you were there from the start until now, because obviously digital spaces have become a lot more unsafe in recent years. So seeing that change and being through that whole journey must have been incredible and probably quite concerning. So I can understand why it's been such a focus and remains such a focus for you.
Yes, I've been very fortunate. I think, in the very beginning, I think that you don't understand the risks associated with it and you believe in the power of good and the power of community. But then you have to really think about building the infrastructure and the communities that are available for the most vulnerable. And I think if you ever want to build online communities and you think about the most vulnerable and think about them at the center of the technology or the standards or the policies that you're bringing, I think you create a thriving community where everyone can feel like they can actually grow and learn.
Yeah, incredible. And Twitch is such an inclusive community and an accessible place for yeah, for people of all ages.
Yes, and I think it's important because I think at the end of the day, you want to make sure that people can connect with their community. And community is so important, and it's not built in a day, it's something that grows over time. And so the ability for somebody to find community is so important, especially during the pandemic. Pandemic, it was so critical because you couldn't see people in person, and having that community to support you was something that we saw, and it was such a beautiful experience to see. And I feel so grateful to be part of that. Just even myself and our family, a lot of times we during the pandemic were connecting, whether it be streaming or gaming or just Zoom meetings at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. As we all were. But I think that that community piece is really important. And it's not just about the community that you're creating in those digital spaces, but I'm sure the community and the trust that you're talking about comes into your team and the way that you lead as well. How does community become a part of your leadership style?
Well, I think what's always important about community is creating clarity and creating basically energy and success. And so I would say, as you build new teams and build new organizations, the importance that they need is understanding, where do I fit in this community? What are our goals for our community and our organization?
Hmm.
And a lot of times people want to understand, what am I doing every day that connects to those goals? And as a leader, I would say, leaning into creating that clarity is so important because people need to understand and be inspired about what they're doing on a daily basis and how that connects to the community or, the organization. And the energy, they need to see the energy of like the positive energy. And it's not just energy every day, but it's like what they're doing is meaningful. And then success. And I would say early in my career when I think about, organizations or as we're talking about community, You used to measure success, right? You would have KPIs or OKRs, because if you can't measure something, you don't feel like you've had an impact. But what's also more important, I think, is basically having shared success and really being an active listener as a leader to make sure people understand what success means to them. So it's really just evolved also, even if you think about community or organizations, it's that shared success definition that's so important to bring people along on the journey.
Yeah, and a lot of the trailblazers have mentioned this. The way that Deb Cupp, she's the president Americas of Microsoft, the way that she said it was creating that North Star for your team and the organization, which is really just creating that vision, but something that everyone can go towards and drive towards and be motivated by moving towards.
Yes, North Star, that is definitely something that's very important, and something when my time at Microsoft, we spoke a lot about North Star and that journey, but also allowing that to evolve as your organization grows. And I think it's so important to make sure that, the North Star is somewhat attainable too. I think at times as a leader, I know I've made mistakes where you've created this North Star where it didn't feel achievable. So it's always doing that balance of ensuring the North Star is definitely something to aspire to, but something that people feel they can achieve as well.
Did that come immediately, that understanding of your leadership style? How has that developed over, throughout your career at Microsoft, but also at Twitch and even today with having some time to think and process and reflect?
I think as a leader, really understanding your why helps you think about how you want to evolve your leadership style. So, recognizing your patterns of passion, right? So, mine have always been about creating high performing teams, creating safe spaces, understanding, like, what motivates me, what have I gravitated towards as a leader. I would also say making sure that you're learning from challenges, right? So, technology challenges, safety standards, customer experience, how are you making it better? I would also say, like, how are you impacting others, whether you're impacting positively your team or how are you impacting positively your community? And then aligning on those core values of inclusivity or whatever your core values may be. What I would say is that how my leadership style has changed has been based on really understanding what motivates my why. And also, I would say in the past, the leadership style has always been like results driven. And a lot of times, as a leader, you think about, okay, how am I measuring success when it comes to results? But I would say over time, and I spoke to this a little bit earlier, was just creating more of that clarity. And I think people need more of that now than I've seen in any past experiences as a leader. It's creating the clarity and focusing more on the clarity of the why of what we're doing. And I think that's grounded and so important in people. They need to connect their why to you as a leader and as an organization. So what has evolved for me is I spend a lot more time on communicating the why and evolving it based on their feedback. And feedback loops are very important. And I would say I've invested a lot more time on feedback loops with the whole organization to make sure that the why is clear to them. Because at the end of the day, you want your team to feel motivated. And I think that they need to understand the why to help with that motivation. And that's really changed as a leader is providing that clarity for them.
How do you identify when your team or an organization needs more clarity?
I think that's a great question, and I think there's kind of multiple signals. Um, I've I've experienced it through, listening to people. Well, what are my goals? Like, what should my goals be for this year? Or I don't understand the organizational goals, or I don't understand the company goals, and so. And you see people sometimes just spinning and kind of that inability to kind of move forward And that's when you pause and you say, okay, we need to now focus more on clarity on the why and what our goals and our priorities are. And you can see sometimes that analysis paralysis with an organization where they're kind of almost stuck. And you get this through all hands, you get this through your leadership team. And you see the organization sometimes just slowing down because they're just stuck. And I think that's when it's really important to go back to your why and what the priorities are. And sometimes reevaluate. Because in a technology company, which both, Twitch and Microsoft are, technology just moves so much more quickly now. And so you have to be agile in how you think about the why and what your priorities are and continually check in with your team.
One of the topics that seems to keep coming up in these interviews is the idea of the generalist leader. So obviously you can be an expert kind of leader, or you can be a generalist leader.
Mm.
You seem to be very focused on obviously the safety and trust and inclusivity, and you have a clear passion for that. Would you say that you have those expert sort of characteristics in your leadership style?
I'm always weary of the word expert. I'll be honest with you. Anyone that says an expert, my like spidey sense starts to come up because I think I'm very much about a learn it all culture. Um, what I would say is that I I think that I'm a generalist and a specialist. And I think sometimes as a leader, as your organizational grows and it becomes more broad. And so you have to be both a generalist and a specialist, and I think I have both because I love learning. And I think that in the safety space there's areas where you do have to be a specialist, meaning you have to understand the technology, you have to understand regulation, you have to understand operational excellence. But some of these are very transferable skills. So my background was more strategy and operations in the very beginning of just understanding that. And as I started to think about my passions and that pattern of passion and where I became more focused on safety, was that I just started to actually start to cultivate that learning experience to be focused more on the safety principles when it came to technology or it came to policies or operations. But I think a lot of leaders I admire and mentor me and I lean into are both generalists and specialists. It's almost like you have to have that 100,000 foot view, the North Star, but you have to be able to dig into the details. And not only do you need to do that as you think about your career, but as you lead organizations, you have to be willing to understand the details enough to help lead an organization through change specifically. I think that's really important. And as in technology, we see all, change happening at a very rapid pace.
Excellent. I think it's really helpful because there are lots of different ways that you can lead, like whether you're a generalist or a specialist or an expert or
Yeah.
a combination of all of the above. And for our listeners, there are going to be people in all of those sorts of leadership styles. So it's good to see how they can develop throughout. Um, I want to move on to the legacy side of things. We want to look at kind of what you want to leave behind. This section is all about impact. So, what have you been most proud of in your career? Where have you had the biggest impact?
Wow. I mean, as a leader and probably as someone who's had great leaders to work with, I would say it's always about the people. I mean, we can talk about the things we've done, but we haven't done it without great people. I would say the things that I care most about is finding the potential in people and the self belief and seeing them grow as leaders. And I've had opportunity to see this many times in different leadership opportunities that I have had. And this is probably my foundation on this is based on just the experience I had that someone was willing to take a risk on me as a leader. And I think that the more we can create leaders and create environments where people can have self belief, especially for women, is really important to me. So I hope my legacy, or something that I care most about, is just finding the potential in those leaders and that self belief that they can have in the future. I would say, of course, also it's just about equity, also in online communities, and digital experiences are very important to me. And there's been great work the teams I've been a part of have delivered, but the most important to me is just the potential in others and seeing them grow and thrive in emerging leaders.
It's becoming rarer and rarer for anyone to say anything different to that, honestly. All of the leaders that I talk to now, the people who are doing really well, the trailblazers, they are all about people. They're so focused on people and developing them and creating the next generation of leaders, because we know that leadership within an organization has a trickle down effect and impacts society and the way that our world runs and the way that we live within this world. It's an incredible impact that leaders like yourself and the other trailblazers can have.
Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. And it's such an honor to be included in the other trailblazers that I have connected with, such incredible women. And I just think there's more that we can do for women, in community, in creating safe online spaces. And I admire so many of the women that are included in this group. And it's a privilege to be part of it.
It is a privilege to talk to you all. Angela, thank you for your time and candor today on Why How Impact. It is inspiring to hear such a genuine perspective on how you're balancing a high-powered career, like such a high-powered career, with family priorities as well. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Why How Impact is a weekly conversation with our 2024 Trailblazers. So make sure you subscribe and tune in next week as we continue to explore what it takes to be a leader and the powerful why behind it all. Until then, remember that the linear career path is kind of a fallacy. So prioritize what truly matters to you today, this week, this year, and throughout your career. I'm Jasmine Keys, and this is Why How Impact. We'll see you next time.